In this lesson, we'll look at how to position things within our Visio drawing. And once again, this is something that it's a case where there's more than meets the eye. If you're thinking right now, yes, I already know how to position things, I just select it and then drag it around the page, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that in Visio, a lot of times we want to be much more precise than just dragging something around our diagram. Some of our business diagrams, we want to be very precise and exacting about where things are. So we'll combine some techniques that in fact we learned in the first chapter of this course as we look at how to position things. So one way is that you make a selection and then you just use the arrow keys up, down, and left and right. And I'll just go ahead and undo that a couple times. Or I could use the dynamic grid and reposition this so that it is equidistant apart from the other two objects, the square, and that it's centered on those other two objects. Now if I bring in another object, let's say an ellipse, and I drag and drop that, notice again that the dynamic grid will help me align it like so. But the dynamic grid won't help me in every instance. Let's say I want to drag a rectangle onto the drawing, and I want that rectangle to start exactly 1 inch in on the page, and I want it to be exactly 3 inches wide. So how do I do that? Well, the smart grid might help me line it up with the triangle or the square, but it's not going to help me put it exactly where I need it to go because the dynamic grid isn't that smart. Instead, what I want you to look at are the little hash marks that appear next to the ruler here, both the horizontal and the vertical ruler. And you can use those hash marks to help you line things up. So how do I know if I'm exactly 1 inch in? Well, here's where also zooming might be very helpful. So I'll zoom in to this object, which is centered right now, and then I can drag, and notice as I do, those kind of beginning, middle, and end type of guides. So now I know when I let go that I'm exactly 1 inch. The edge of this rectangle is exactly 1 inch into the page. Now if I want to make it 3 inches long, then I can zoom out a little bit and just kind of count over. There's 1, 2, 3. So I want to reposition this or resize it, and using the guides in the ruler, I stop at 4. Now I've got a rectangle that is 1 inch into the page going left to right, and it's 3 inches long. Now I'll zoom to fit and show you one other technique. Let's say that instead I want to align the edge of this with the edge of that and the edge of that triangle. How can I do that? Well, this isn't really going to help me line things up exactly as I want to line them up. What I could use in that case is a guide. So here's a vertical guide. I showed you this earlier in the previous chapter. I can drag to add that vertical guide, and I can drag it to be, precisely at the 4 inch mark because I can use those little ruler guides to help me. But now I can select the object and drag it and snap it to that vertical guide. So there we go. Just click and drag, and as you get next to that vertical drag, the object that is selected will snap into place, aligning with the vertical guide you've just drawn. You do the same thing with a horizontal guide. So if you wanted to line up that circle and that triangle precisely so, you could use the vertical guide to do that. And if you want to now put your vertical guides away, if they're distracting you, you can just select them. You have to click on them when the mouse pointer looks like that, and then hit the delete key, or you could conceivably click and drag and put them aside, like so. That probably won't be the best way to do it. So again, if you want to get rid of the vertical guides once and for all, because it can reposition things as you just saw, the best technique is to select it and hit the delete key.